thanks for joining me today on the latest episode of Conversations and Connections. Again, we're the official podcast of the Family Crisis Center of East Texas. I'm Stuart Burson, the prevention coordinator for the agency. And today got a special guest all the way from Austin with the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, otherwise known as TAASA. I had the pleasure of recently recording an interview with Emiliano de Leon, who is the men's engagement specialist. As the prevention coordinator for the agency and a member of the prevention team, myself, along with other folks here on the prevention team, have worked with Emiliano with different projects, different things in the past. So it was good to catch up with Emiliano via Zoom to talk about a special project that he has been undertaking now for about the past year, and that is called Texas Men Speak. So I recently sat down with Emiliano, again via Zoom, to talk to him about the project. So let's give that a listen. Well, Emiliano de Leon, thank you so much for joining us via Zoom this
morning. Happy to be with you, Stuart. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Emiliano. So, first of all, so with TAASA, and that's the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, you're the men's engagement specialist. I guess, first of all, tell me a little bit about your role in that title. What does the men's engagement specialist do?
Well, thank you, Stuart, for having me. I'm my name's Emiliano Diaz. I am the men's engagement specialist. I've been with TAASA now for 13 years. And so it's a really unique role here at TAASA. So, I get to provide training and technical assistance around engaging men in the prevention and advocacy of sexual violence. When we think about all the other coalitions in the country and territories, I'm really unique in that way. There's only a handful of coalitions that have this type of position that focuses on engaging male-identified folks, like I said, around the prevention and advocacy. So that also means for, helping rape crisis centers, other institutions, social service agencies, colleges and universities really think about engaging men in the prevention as well as providing victim advocacy around sexual violence. So it's really unique. I've been in this role for a while. I don't know exactly how many of the 13 years I was the men's engagement specialist, but I've been working in the arena of prevention my entire professional life. So prior to coming to TAASA, I was a victim advocate and a volunteer coordinator, a community educator. I worked at the shelter here in Austin, Texas, as a children's advocate. So, and then prior to that, I was a volunteer. So, victim advocacy, prevention work has always is my life's work. And so I am very fortunate to be able to focus on this particular initiative here in Texas.
And so I do want to get to probably the main thing we're going to be talking about is the Texas Men Speak here in just a second, but I kind of want to go back with your role and even the role that I have here at the Family Crisis Center as the prevention coordinator. How, when we go to, back in the day when we used to go to conferences in person, you didn't see, there are men doing this work, but it's not a whole lot. How important is it, in your opinion, that men become active in sexual assault prevention work?
Well, it definitely has changed since I started. Like many folks who are listening to this, they may be the first male-identified person working in their agency, either as a staff person or as a volunteer. And that was true for me as well. When I started at Safe Alliance here in Austin, Texas, I was the first male-identified person to work as a victim advocate in the battered women's shelter, and the first the first volunteer, male volunteer in that capacity. And so, but I was not the only, I wasn't the first male identified person that had worked with the organization in some capacity. And so it was those men that came before me that really opened the door and made it possible for me to work as a victim advocate, to volunteer and then to work as a victim advocate. And I have seen now at Safe Alliance, there's countless men, right? They just make up a significant part of, they're not half of the staff, but they make a significant part of the staff of Safe Alliance as well as volunteers, right? And so I think for men who have been engaged in this work, we don't realize, and it's an important reminder that we're opening doors for other male identified folks and modeling what that work looks like, right? And so I think that's really important. There's still a lot of work for us to do. There's still not enough men engaged in this work as volunteers, as victim advocates, as prevention educators, as board members, donors, et cetera, right? So I think there is an important opportunity for the male identified folks who are listening to your podcast to get involved, and to figure out how they can support the survivors in their life, and the survivors in their community. I think there's, a tremendous opportunity for us to lead by example and to encourage the boys and men in our life to do the same, to get involved, because ultimately, when we all do this work, when we do this work with women who have been engaged in this work from the very beginning, I think ultimately we'll create a society that, is just and without violence. And I think that, boys and men have an important role and responsibility in that work. Girls and women can't do it alone. We have to do it with them. And so I definitely want to invite all the male identified folks who are listening to get involved in some way.
Right. And I guess that's one of the unique things I like about what I do. And I don't know if I notice it as much now as I did when I first started. And you probably have seen a difference from when you first started till now. If you're going somewhere to do a presentation or to speak and they see a man talking about sexual violence prevention, where, and I always try to reiterate, men are victims as well, or men are survivors, I should say, as well. But again, facts are facts, and probably the majority of at least reported assaults, women are the survivors. And I think it just shows it's a good thing for survivors and other folks in the community to see men taking up this role in being advocates for survivors of any type of relationship violence.
Absolutely, Stuart. I think you're a great example of that. I mean, you are leading by example, and I imagine that there are other boys and men who have got involved with your organization as a result of the work that you do, as a result of an invitation that you made, or said something, or people just knowing the fact that you work at the center. So I think that makes a real difference, and I think again we have a lot of work to do. Not just in terms of our involvement, but I think in the prevention of domestic and sexual violence,
right,
and other forms of interpersonal violence, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have a lot of work to do as men, and so I think you spoke to that earlier in terms of a part of that work is our statewide initiative called the Texas Men Speak, which is really intended to organize and encourage and support and hold accountable male identified folks who are engaged in that work, right? Whether it is at a local rape crisis center, whether it is at a college or university, whether it is at their place of worship, wherever wherever there are men who are engaged in this work, we want to support those individuals and create a community for self-reflection and for, education and development around healthy masculinity. And so the Texas Men Speak is, we will be celebrating 1 year next month with this particular initiative. And we're excited about continuing it, into the future in terms of continuing to organize men around the state, and inviting rape crisis centers to organize the men in their own community to facilitate these kinds of discussions, right? There's no reason that folks at a local level can organize their buddies and, the guys in their community to have these same discussions, but at a local level. And then connect with us, at the statewide level and men around the state virtually, to network, to share resources, to share encouragement, but also to hold each other accountable. Because right. I think ultimately, in order for us to be effective, we need to be responsible in the work that we do, in our relationships with the girls, women, and children in our lives, including with other men. So I think ultimately that's the mission of the Texas Men Speak.
In your experience so far, either with Texas Men Speak or just as a prevention worker in Texas, how easy or how hard has it been to engage men who aren't already in this line of work? Now, I've sat in on some of the Texas Men Speak Zoom calls that you've had, and a lot of the guys in those calls are in the same field that we're in. But going beyond that and engaging the community, like we always try to do, what has been your experience with that? Again, I can speak for East Texas, and you're in Austin, so it may be a little bit easier because Austin is probably more of a liberal environment that may be more receptive to this work. But what has been your experience with doing this work in Texas, engaging men specifically?
Great question, Stuart. I think for folks that are listening, if you are doing this work in some form, whether you're a youth minister, whether you're a coach, whether you're a father, whether you're a father figure, a mentor, that is working with the boys and men in your life, it's not easy. It's really hard work, I think. So I just want to acknowledge that this is not, while we think this is still not the norm. This is not mainstream, right? And so unfortunately, we haven't gotten to a place where the majority of men feel like are making this the issue of domestic and sexual violence a priority in their lives, in their relationships, in their conversations. But I think so. It's not easy work of organizing men around these issues. But I think it really starts at the relationship level, right? It's like, I think, we can use me and you as an example of developing a relationship over time, of working together, providing encouragement and support to you and to the Family Crisis Center of East Texas. I really believe that if we're going to be effective around these issues, we have to begin with the relationship. We need to start with the relationships that we have, right? The men who are sort of inner circled. And I think inviting them into those conversations, like my son, just having a conversation with him this morning in the car on the way to school, about, what it means to be a boy, what it means to be, he's turning 12 today. And, where he's at developmentally, and having that conversation. That particular milestone for him is significant for us as a family. And so it's about him growing into becoming, this wonderful, he's just an amazing, brilliant, beautiful boy, that's becoming this young man. And so I think those are the kinds of conversations that we're already having. And we're really successful at having those conversations with our friends and our children and the men in our life that we love and that we live with. And then once we are comfortable engaging in these conversations about healthy relationships and around sexual violence and domestic violence and dating violence, etc., then I think we can go out of that circle of influence and really be into influencing other men that live outside of our home, whether it's our neighbors, whether it's the people that we worship with, whether it's our coworkers or classmates, right? So we begin to move out to that next layer of relationships, and I think that's the hardest, right? Is just finding the courage, and it doesn't require any special training. So for folks who are listening to this podcast, you don't need to go through the 40-hour training at Family Crisis Center of East Texas to do this work. Like, it's just about having conversations with the boys and men in your life, just really honest, open conversations about these issues, and about, more importantly, modeling what we want to see in the world in terms of what we want to see in our relationships, not just with our partners, but also with our children. And so it doesn't, we could talk about what it means to be a healthy man. What does healthy manhood look like? Healthy masculinity look like?
I think for some guys, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I think for some men, for us, it's probably an easier thing to talk about. But I think for some men, that's kind of, even you're talking about having that conversation with your son this morning on the way to school about physical things about being a man. I think for a lot of men, that's a hard conversation to have, even with their son.
Yeah, and it takes courage. It takes courage, and it also requires for us to have information, right? It's not because I don't, I'm told that I need to have all the answers, but I don't have all the answers, right? Because of, these ideas, these stereotypes that we have about men and masculinity, that we have to have all the answers. But, like I know I don't have all the answers. And so sometimes I have to look for that. Right. I have to be informed. I have to listen to a podcast, read an article, watch a video. So that I can understand how to have that conversation about puberty, for example, with my son, right? Because nobody had that conversation with me when I was a boy. So, I think for folks who are listening to this podcast might not know my story, I encourage you to Google me. And but one, a significant part of my story is that my father was not in my life, and so I grew up raised by a single mom, and she didn't know how to have that conversation with me when I was 12. I didn't have there wasn't a man in my life that had that conversation, like an uncle, my grandfather. They weren't, they were present, but they didn't know how to have those conversations with me. They were awkward and didn't have the language. Right. And so when I became a father 12 years ago today, I had to learn, I had to read some books. I had to, I'm still trying to figure out what it means to be a father and how to be an engaged father and to have those conversations and to ask other dads how, that have raised boys. What is that conversation like? How, what's the best way to have that conversation? When's the best way? It's time to have that conversation. Right. And so I've learned a lot from the men in my life that are fathers and father figures, but I also have learned a lot from my partner, and I've learned a lot from women, right, in terms of how they have raised their sons or their daughters. And so I think, how do I apply those lessons, right? How do I then incorporate them into my conversations with my son. And I think ultimately I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not a perfect dad. I'm not a perfect partner. And that's okay. Like, nobody expects, like, if you're listening to this, Stuart and myself don't expect you to be perfect. It's just the willingness to have an open mind and open heart.
Right.
And be just willing to listen and to learn and to have a conversation, right? It's not gonna, there's no script. Honestly, there's no script that I can give you, Stuart, or to anybody who's listening to this podcast about how to have those conversations. I think I really believe in trusting your gut and your best, your instincts, and having information on hand, or saying, you know what, I don't know, but I'm going to find out for you. You know what I mean? Or let's
Right.
Google it. Let's
Sure.
Google this together, right? Let me find a book, so that's a good example. I think with my son, I didn't quite have the language and know how to talk about purity. We began talking about that around 5th grade. When they began, like, they had a class about puberty, right? Because as the boys and girls in 5th grade were beginning to mature, they have, at the end of the school year, they have a conversation about purity, as an example. And he was really uncomfortable with that conversation. And he was uncomfortable even having that conversation with us, even though he trusts us and
Right.
we know, we love him and it's safe. It was still difficult. It was very uncomfortable for him. So one of the things that me and Cynthia, my partner, decided to do was provide him with a book that's specifically written for boys about purity.
Awesome.
He loves reading. Gave him the book. He read it like the same day. And we told him, I say, you have any questions, whenever you want to talk about anything you just read, just come to us. Like, we will either find out for you, or we will talk about that particular issue about puberty. And so that door is always open. And I think the same is true with our conversations with the boys and men in our lives. We have to crack that door open a little bit and allow men to open it when they're ready, right? And again, it requires a relationship. It requires trust, which are important to us as men. You know what I mean? Just like to be able to trust, what we share. Like, especially if we're going to be vulnerable, if we're going to share part of ourselves, then we need to be able to trust the person, with that part of ourselves. And that takes time.
Right.
And so again, like, for folks who are listening to this podcast, if you're, a man or a woman, I don't expect you to leave this podcast and go and have a conversation with the boys and men in your life. I just hope that you will use this conversation as a way to open that door. Like, just share this podcast episode with them, and come back to them and say, what did you think? I thought it was interesting. I thought what Stuart said, or I thought what Emiliano said, was really interesting. That was an interesting point. I had never thought about that before. And then that's how we use this kind of content, right? That's how we could use books and articles and podcasts and videos, just to begin those hard conversations, and to know that you're not alone, and that it's not easy, and you're not always going to get it right, and that's okay.
So quickly, I want to talk about Texas Men Speak. You said you're coming up on a year, right, of that. What do you see the future of that happening? And I may be completely wrong when I say this. It seems like right now, the sessions I've attended via Zoom, it's been like-minded men in this work, having discussions, which is awesome, which is great. I think as men in prevention, we still have issues, and we still have things that we need to talk about other men with. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But the future of Texas Men Speak, do you want to see that going beyond what you're doing now?
Yeah, great question. This particular initiative is unique because of we launched this initiative during COVID, and unfortunately, we're still in it, right? With the Delta variant, and so as a result of that, this entire initiative has been virtual. But it's also there's a silver lining to that, is that male identified folks from around the state have been able to participate virtually through Zoom, like you said, on a monthly basis. So these are monthly conversations on different topics, and those topics were determined by the men who are engaged in this work around the state. And so we've explored, in September it'll be 12 different topics. And what's unique about the Texas Men Speak, it's not a series, it's not a training, it's really it is a discussion-based initiative that's focused on that topic. And so we really try to, as much as we can in an hour, to unpack and to explore and to have a conversation with just men, right? And in that way, it's really unique, right? And so men are able to participate via Zoom and engage in the conversation if they can and they want. So it's sort of drop in. So if that topic doesn't, really interest you, that's okay. There's going to be a topic in the series that might interest you. Maybe you're a coach, and so you attended the session on working with coaches. And so sort of as an example, and we really want to continue to create a space where male identified folks will absolutely attend monthly, right? Because it's a small commitment that we're asking men to make, is to tune in for an hour once a month, and to participate in some dialogue online. So we were using, when we created this initiative, there are two components to it. There is a Google Classroom where we try to, at the beginning of the month, try to get men to think about that topic and to explore that topic, to read an article, listen to a podcast, watch a video, watch a film, and answer some reflective questions. So we're sort of like getting you ready for the virtual gathering, so that you already have some ideas, you have some thoughts that you're ready to share, and that space is really intended for you then to share those ideas that you might have been thinking about on your own or in the Google Classroom with other men. And so that's sort of how we rolled out this initiative. What we're doing starting this month is we're going to be conducting another questionnaire that will help us determine the topics for the next 12 months. And so men who have been participating in Texas Men Speak, which, over the year, there have been about, I think the most current number is about 70 men in some form have either attended one or multiple Texas Men Speak. So about 70 men have come through Texas Men Speak. We're asking them to complete this questionnaire and to help guide both the structure in the topics for the next 12 months. So starting in October, we'll be relaunching the Texas Men Speak, and it will continue to be virtual because of, like I said, because of COVID and Delta. While we were hoping to begin to meet with men in person around the state, that probably won't happen this year.
Yeah.
And so, we're hoping that we're going to be able to do that in 22. And what that means is that men, like yourself, at the Family Crisis Center of East Texas, would be able to host a Texas Men Speak meeting, and invite men from the local community in the region to attend, right? And so I would show up and facilitate that month's topic with the men who are in there, who are attending in person, who you've been organizing, who are involved with your organization, or who you want, this is an opportunity for you to invite men into the conversation. And then men would be able to tune in virtually and participate virtually through Zoom. So you'd have me and you in person with other men in the room, and then you'd have men from all over the state and around the country that would be able to tune in virtually and participate in that dialogue. So that is really our hope for 22, is that we're able to host, that rape crisis centers are able to host. So if you're listening to this and you're really curious and you would love to be a part of this initiative, please reach out to me, because we will begin to hopefully plan some of those in-person gatherings, because it really is intended to help folks organize men at the local level, so that those men in that organization, like the men from that organization, can continue participating in the statewide network. And so that really is the idea, is that we want to support men on the ground, right? Like my role as the men's engagement specialist is to support men like you, Stuart, and the work that you're doing with other boys and men in your community, and anyone who's engaged in that work, whether they're at a rape crisis center or whether they're just listening to this podcast.
Well, and that was going to be my next question. I know right now we're meeting through Zoom, and you said it next month, or October, there's going to be a questionnaire set out how we want to go forward with this. Are there still going to be monthly meetings throughout the end of the year? Are you going to take a hiatus and start back?
No break. So actually, we're going to be conducting the questionnaire in September.
Okay.
And then based on that the feedback from men who have participated in Texas Men Speak, we'll be developing the series, which will start in October 1st. The other unique thing is that we are we're creating a Facebook. We're moving from Google Classroom to a Facebook group.
Okay.
Because I was new to Google Classroom. I think most men, who are listening to this might be familiar with it because of their children during maybe virtual education during COVID. But I think most men our age, I'll speak for myself. I know I'm still on Facebook, and I know a lot of men my age are on Facebook, and so we're gonna move it to Facebook, and we're gonna create a Facebook group.
Okay.
And what's going to be unique about that is that you will have an opportunity, even if you are attending the Texas Men Speak for the first time, you will have an opportunity to go through the previous 12 units, right? The previous 12 topics. And so Facebook allows you to, in a Facebook group, to create units of study, right? And these are self-guided, so it's not a requirement of being in the group, but for men who want to explore the issue that we've, the last 12 topics, can do that in the Facebook group.
For right now, are men who are listening to the podcast now, are they open to attend the current Texas Men Speak meetings?
Absolutely.
If they want to do that, how?
If you are listening to this, please join me and Stuart, right? This is holding, Stuart putting the fire under his seat. But yeah, there's a virtual gathering this month, on the 23rd of September from 10 to 11 o'clock Central. And so, if you're a man here in Texas and you want to join it, just check it out. Encourage you to reach out to me at TX Men Speak at TAASA.org. So, I don't know, Stuart, if you can include that in the notes, but reach out to Stuart, and Stuart can put you in touch with me. But you can again, I'm going to give you the email address again. It's TX Men Speak at TAASA.org. And so just email me to RSVP that you're interested in attending the September 23rd Texas Men Speak discussion this month, for the month of September. So there's plenty of time to join us for that. And you will be added to sort of our lead list for the Texas Men Speak initiative. And so you'll receive emails, like regular emails, about upcoming virtual gatherings. And so, yeah, folks are, men are more than welcome to join us in September, and then to continue,
Right.
for the next 12 months. And so, yeah, it'll be a really unique experience, because I think, again, the Facebook group will allow us to engage each other a little bit easier in discussion pre and post the virtual gathering. And that is really our intention. We also hope that, through this questionnaire, one of the things we've been hearing from folks is that they're getting a lot out of the virtual gatherings in terms of both their learning, but they also feel like it's not enough time, right? To really to get deeper and to really to dig into the topic.
Sure.
And so we hear that, and we're hoping that men, through the questionnaire, will be able to request, an hour and a half to 2 hours. So we'll see, because again, all of that is guided by men. The feedback from men who participate in who complete the questionnaire will really help us design the most effective, program for the next 12 months. And so, I don't determine that. The men in the group do, in terms of the topics that we explore. So this month, in September, we'll be exploring accountability for male allies, right? What does that mean to be a male ally, and how do we hold each other accountable, especially when we engaged in problematic or abusive behavior in our relationships, whether it's our work relationships, our professional relationships, our personal relationships, etc. So we're going to explore that in September, and we hope that if you're listening, if you're a man and you're interested in joining us, and joining me and Stuart, that you'll definitely reach out and RSVP for September's meeting.
Awesome. Emiliano, before we go, there's one more question I want to ask, and I always especially ask if I have men in this line of work on the podcast. You said you've pretty much have been an advocate, and you've done prevention work on and off pretty much for most of your professional life. What made you get involved in this? What prompted you to decide this is the career path you want to go into?
Yeah, like I said, if you Google, you'll find my story. And it really started when I was a young man in high school. Like I said, I'm a survivor of family violence. And as a result of those experiences, began engaging in abusive behavior as a teenage boy. And it was through a program from Safe Alliance here in Austin, at my high school, called Expect Respect, where I sort of begin to unlearn and undo the harm that my abusive behavior was causing, and to heal from the violence that I was experiencing at home, right? So I imagine a lot of folks who are listening are survivors themselves also, and so have that lived experience. And so that was what drove me to join Expect Respect in high school when I was a sophomore. And then when I graduated, I decided this was sort of the work that I wanted to do professionally.
Okay.
And so I began to volunteer at Safe Alliance, and then started working at Safe Alliance at the shelter when I was 21. And so, I've been doing this work since I was a young man, and I think ultimately it is my life's work, and it's and it doesn't matter whatever, if you're listening, regardless of your age or regardless of your experience, it's never too late to get involved, to volunteer, to work for, to work with your local organization, your local rape crisis center and domestic violence center. So I think it is important for you to get involved, right? And hopefully, our mission here at TAASA is to end sexual violence in Texas. And I think ultimately I've embraced that vision, that I hope that we can end both domestic violence and sexual assault and dating violence, et cetera, in my lifetime, or at least in my son's lifetime. And I really believe that. But again, we have to do that together with women and girls. And so, and I think, again, like we've spoken about, boys and men have a an important role and responsibility in helping to bring an end to interpersonal violence in all of its forms. So that really is the invitation here, is to really to change our culture and to change our society and to make Texas a safe place for everyone.
Awesome. All right. Emiliano, thank you so much for taking some time. I know your schedule is probably pretty busy, but again, I appreciate you responding to the call and being on the podcast. Thank you.
Anything for you, Stuart, in the Family Crisis Center of East Texas. So but however I can support you, and thank you so much for the work that you do and that your organization does with victims and survivors on a daily basis.
All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And again, I really do appreciate Emiliano for taking time to join me via Zoom for that talk about Texas Men Speak. So if you have any questions about Texas Men Speak, again, the contact is txmenspeak@taasa.org. And I will also put that at that email address in the show notes as well. So if you have any questions about this or anything that you've heard on Conversations and Connections, you can email us at conversationsandconnections@fccet.com. And if you also feel like you need the services of the Family Crisis Center for any reason, we do have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week toll-free hotline. That phone number is 1-800-828-7233. Again, that's 1-800-828-7233. Be sure to subscribe to Conversations and Connections. You can subscribe to us via Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or the podcast service of your choice. And remember, be the voice, if not for you, for someone else.